our papa, we badu your pata, and we throw a salama, as now you hold us down.
All right, it's a. Uh-oh. Give me a minute.
Hello, Anoman. Good evening, everyone. Can't hear you, Anoman, but you seem to be talking.
Good evening. I can hear you. I think maybe on the man's on the call or something.
Awesome. Good to know that my audio is not being funky. Good evening,
No, it's
Dr.
not.
Jane.
Good evening. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, Olamide Omotosho.
Yes.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for having me here. Good evening. It came in phone, right? Yeah.
Ikemefuna,
And
spot on.
all right. Thank you. Yeah, yeah.
I'm just gonna spotlight. Oh my God.
Now we can
Just-
hear you, Anoman.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do now.
Okay, technology is something else. Oh my God. Good evening again, everybody. I'm sure you can all hear me. Can you? Yes? Yes? Can you hear me? Technology is something else. Oh my God.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good evening again, everybody. Can you? Yes? Oh my God. Yes? Can you hear me? Technology is something else. Can you hear me? You can hear me. Okay. All right. Good evening again, everybody, and welcome to Village Meeting. Okay, I think so. I think so, Lucia. I'm not even sure what's going on right now. I wish I have someone here to help me, but it's okay. I will just. Good evening. Good evening, Kinsley. Good evening, Agbo, Olawumi, Amina, Emmy. Oh yes, that's my sis, Dr. Jane, Mr. Fella, Lower Fella, Kiki, Jude, Ibukun, Miriam, Femi, Olamide Moto Show, Lucia, Olatoyo, and Kinsley. Okay. We have about 22 people on the call now. Thank you again for coming. And my co-host for today, Mr. Ikemefuna with the voice. Just hold on, I'm gonna read something out, and that's actually him. Yes, thank you, Mary. Thank you for coming in. Thank you everyone for coming in this evening. If you want to please, can you please send someone a text and just say we are in right now, we are live, we are waiting for you, we are expecting you, we are here to talk about these great things together to keep our kids in a good place. Today, I'm not hosting alone. I am hosting with the. Hold on, I'm just going to read it out. All right. I am here with the ever proficient and eloquent host, Ikemefuna Odiachi. I mean, the first day, that we put this out, someone sent a message and said, "Send this to Ike right now. We need to keep hearing his voice all the time." As in, Ike is such an amazing person. Not just the voice, but the values and everything that you believe in, and how hard you work for this community. Absolutely, I'm gonna say that. So once again, welcome everybody. I'm hoping that my technical issue very, very soon. But we are going to go over to today's discourse that we have at the village meeting today. I just want to make sure that all our guests are here. Dr. Jane, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Thank you for what you did at the last village meeting, even without being invited. Thank you so much. And we also have a psychologist here today, Olamide Omotosho. Today we're going to be delving into mental health, a little bit of addictions, just to be able to understand some things around that area. And yes, if you're here today and you have any medical questions, any medical concerns, we have Dr. Jane on the call, and we also have Olamide Omotosho, a psychologist here in Alberta or Edmonton, on the call. And also we have, I'm not sure if Engineer CJ is here today, such a very wonderful man. I respect him a lot, and he has done so well, honestly well with his children. And we are inviting him here today to just come share his experiences. He's been here for over 20 years, and I know that there's some people here also who've been here for over 20 years, but just sharing his experiences and how that has gone for him with his kids so far. We have Mr. CJ Ukiwe here today. I'm not sure if he's on the call now. If he's not, I'll quickly call him or send a text. And also we have the group.
I'm here.
Amish, call her. Welcome, Mr. CJ. I see you. Welcome, sir. We have Aminat Shaibo. We call her Amish. Amazing, amazing lady doing homeschooling, and she has some really great materials working with kids. Amina, welcome. It's good to have you at the village meeting. Welcome on the call. You're going to hear her. She gave me a disclaimer, but don't worry, Amina, you are on track. What we're going to do, Ikemefuna is going to help us with that. And then the 4 guests that we have on the call today, but it's always nice to have our therapists here, Olushaya, Ashir, and everyone here. If I haven't called your name, welcome again. I see all of you, Grace, Omar, Chiedu, Wando, Adeola, iPhone, all the iPhones, Eso, John, everyone, welcome again. Please send a message to someone who is not here and say we have started for today. So I'm going to give it over to Ikemefuna. Ikemefuna is going to facilitate the meeting with everyone here. We are going to start from the bullet points that we have on the flyer, and we're just going to take it up from there. Ikemefuna, if you don't mind, please go ahead.
Thank you, Onomen. Good evening, everyone. It's been a long time. I think the last time we did this was sometime in April when I joined Onomen to co-facilitate this session. So I'm excited to be back to do this. And to all of our guests, Olamide, Aminat, Ukiwe, Dr. Jane, it's a pleasure to be doing this with you. So thank you very much. I would be leaning on your expertise, and not just me, the community, right, to engage in this discourse. And I'm hoping that we're going to have a productive conversation with open, like minds that can actually bounce ideas and have conversations, address questions as they flow, and also take into consideration our unique perspectives that we bring in. So as many of us who may or may not have reviewed the flyers, I'm just going to go through some of the bullet points that I'll be talking about. And then once I do that, I'm going to hand over to our guests to just give a little bit of an intro, who you are, what you do, and what we should expect from the conversations. And also for those who are attending, I'm hoping that you can begin to drop your questions in the chat. Don't be shy. If you also have any thoughts you want to bring to this discourse, Onomen, I believe it's okay if we have people indicate by raising up their hands. And then the whole idea is to have a discourse. We're not just facing and throwing things at you, right? This is the village meeting season 11. So it's going to be an exciting conversation. So some of the bullet points we'll be looking at today would be effective discipline strategies. What does it even mean? how do we approach it, especially in a Western world like this, right? Building a strong identity for us as parents and especially for our kids. What does that look like? Boosting self-esteem and confidence among their peers, in their schools, in their playgroups, and in neighborhoods that we find ourselves, and recognizing early signs of mental health struggles, which also ties neatly sometimes into practical approaches to ADHD support. We'll be looking to the doctors to actually deconstruct what ADHD means. So, as many of us who do not know, and then as well as academics versus skills. To kickstart this conversation, I would open it up to Olamide. Just give us a snippet, who you are, why we should be listening to you, and the value you bring to this conversation.
I love
That's
that
good.
second part. I love that second part. Why you should be listening to me. Yeah. So good evening, everyone. It's a privilege to be here. Um, thankful to the village headmistress. So we friends. We've known for quite some time now. When we both did our addiction recovery program, and she's been an amazing person. So and I'm sure for Ikeme Fena to be co-hosting, she works with like minds. So thank you very much for having me here, and to all other guest speakers and village members, if that's how you say it, I don't know. We are villagers. So yeah, I'm a registered provisional psychologist here in Edmonton, and also licensed with the College of Alberta Psychologists. So I've got just one more for the sake of licensure. I've got to write my EPPP exam, which is a licensed exam for both Canada and the US to become fully registered. But that does not actually put any dent on my credentials to work as a therapist supporting kids. I've worked for a quarter of a decade, it's about 3.5 years working with the school system. So I've worked with kids, I've worked with teenagers, and in a triage, also work with families to help support kids, support their teens, twins, if you want to put that, I mean, that's that age between um, you know, 9 to 12, not exactly adolescents and not, they're just coming off, getting into that teenage year. So I've worked with a couple other agencies supporting individuals. So basically, I revolve around mental health. My goal is to help individuals achieve that quality of life they aspire and they desire. Not always easy, but doable. So yeah, I can go on and on, but I think for the sake of time, I'll just stop it there.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks for sharing your 25 plus years of experience with us. I'm sure there's a whole lot of wisdom nuggets and practical experiences that you'll be bringing to the table. So thank you very much,
I
Olamide.
I really hope
A
so.
pleasure. Yeah. Aminat, over to you, Mom. Let us meet you. I know you also have a wealth of experience as a mother, as a professional, and someone who has been in Canada for a while. So please, can we meet you? You're muted right now, so you might need to unmute yourself.
Right now. Yeah, should be good.
Can hear you. You're good.
Thank you for inviting me on the man. I am looking forward to learning from everyone on the call. My name is Amina Shuaib, and I am from Nigeria. And I've been here for about 7 years now, and I'm proud to call Canada my home. I'm a mother of 5, and I homeschool my children, which keeps me happily busy and constantly learning alongside. I also work professionally as a HR functional analyst, and I I am a Black Muslim, proud to share spaces with people, always wanting to learn about other people, diversity and faith, creating space where we can all feel included. And I am really looking forward to learning more about what we have on the agenda today. I think I would say that I'm more excited about learning more. Thank you.
At least on my bucket list of questions for you, Aminat, is how do you do homeschooling for 5 kids? Oh my goodness. We will
Well,
get
not
there.
5 of them, to be very honest with you. Just 3 of them right now are currently homeschooling. The other one is still, playfully homeschooling, but actively 3 of them.
I can imagine how intense that can be and a lot of balls that you get to juggle developing their programs and curriculums. But we'll get to
Yeah.
that. Mr. Chijioke Okiwe, let us meet you, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah, you called my name. My name is Chijioke Okiwe. I think it's easier for you than most of my white friends find it difficult. So I shorten it to CJ for them, but sometimes I insist they try because I try to call their names too. So I'm a professional engineer, so I'm an engineering consultant, and I'm also into building, as in building, as in construction houses. I'm not like Olamide, not in the medical field, and I do not have 5 kids. We stopped at 3, and I thought my mom had 7, my wife's mom had 7, so it appears most of us are underperforming our parents. So I think I'm going to stop at 3. I have 3 kids, 17, 16, and 16. And I've been around here 23 years. I came 23 years ago to do my master's in mechanical engineering. And in spite of how cold it is, I chose to stay. So, and I think I made it all these years. And thank God through a lot of experience in disciplining and working with our kids side by side. I think there's a lot, maybe a few nuggets of information I could pass across to some of you in the team here. And if I hear something unique that I never knew, I think I'd like to take that on and see how much more I could impart onto my kids. So thanks for inviting me. I wanted to say I didn't know there was a village headmistress here, so I didn't know how far Onome had come. So much appreciated.
Oh, Chijioke, that's funny. Now we know Onomen is our village headmistress. But I'm disappointed, Chijioke. I was hoping you would break our parents' records. I mean, 3. Why stop at 3? Come on, Chijioke. There's still time, though. There's still time just in case to change your mind. All right, Dr. Jane, can we meet you, please?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm hoping everyone can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Excellent. My name is Jane. And who is Jane? Jane is Jane. Jane is okay, let's start again. Jane is Jane, a mom of 3, a wife, a child of parents that are alive, okay? And beyond all of that, I'm a physician practicing here in Alberta. I've been a physician for 20 years, and 11 out of the 20 I've practiced as a family physician. I would say 2 out of the 11 I've practiced as a family physician in Canada. That's pretty much it. I'm a fun-loving person. I'm a happy person. I'm a service person. So wherever there is service, wherever there is fun, wherever there is happiness, you're gonna find me there. And that's just all about Jane. So I'm just here today to share a little bit of information about ADHD and mental health struggles, and just basically just a few information, and then I'll just be open to questions, and I'll try my best to address them as much as I can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jane. I know it's going to be an amazing conversation with the 4 of you on this call. And Headmistress Jane, feel free to chip in wherever. No, I said Jane on the man. Feel free to chip in wherever the need arises. I want us to start this conversation with family dynamics before we even dive into any of these topics. How would you say, and I'm sure all of you are like parents, right? You're all parents, you have kids. What has been the variation of your family dynamics in terms of how you coached, disciplined, mentor your kids, be it in Nigeria or compared in the West, compared it to what it was in Nigeria? How did that play around? Did that evolve, or were you consistent in the way you actually nurtured and grew your kids, or even disciplined them? But what was that dynamics around your family? I'm curious to know, and I'll probably start with Aminat on this. Not necessarily the disciplining part, but how have you been able to navigate being a parent in Nigeria or Africa versus the Western world? How has that panned out for you?
Absolutely. For me, I think coming here really evoked a sense of awareness and intentionality more than when I was back in Nigeria. I became aware of how Black I was and how Muslim I was, and the fact that I used the hijab. And so my identity is, you can't hide it. My accent, my experience is the one that I carry is just, it goes everywhere with me. So when I parent my kids, I come from a perspective of all this that I just mentioned and try as much as possible to have an open mind into, hearing about other people and how they, especially here is very multicultural. So it's not, you're meeting different people from different cultures, the Filipinos, the Indians, the Arabs and all that. So you try as much as possible to look at what they're doing and how they're doing with their kids and see what you can take from that. So I'm very much open to learning from what other people are doing, but at the same time, never losing the one that I have with me. I use that as a baseline. And whenever I feel like, oh, this does not make sense, or when I see that it's not, sometimes it's not like it doesn't make sense, it just does not make sense for where we're living in and the times that we're parenting. So you have to switch it up, you have to learn more and be open. For me, I allow my kids to be very open in expressing themselves. I try as much as possible to encourage them to challenge me or an idea, and just be polite about it. So I tell them it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So make sure that when you're coming to me and telling me, I disagree with what you have done or what you asked me to do, make sure you're coming correct. Like, make sure you're coming. I don't care if you're not able to really express yourself, but make sure that you're polite. Because even when you go out there, once you go and attack people or you're confrontational, you kind of lose the whole purpose. So I try to teach them from that perspective. I mean, I don't know. I think I would just continue talking if I don't stop there.
Great call outs. I love the fact that you highlighted self-awareness, and you've also spoken to the fact that everyone comes with a unique perspective, and we need to be cognizant of the fact that everyone has their views and their values, and we must respect it, even when we tend to challenge the norms. Awesome. Chijioke, I know you have been here, I dare say, the longest, 25 years and plus. I stand to be corrected here in Canada. Keep me honest here, Chijioke. Not really. Ish. So I'm curious, how has your
23.
mindset, 23 years,
23.
there you go, 23 years, how has your perspective evolved as a person, as a parent, and as a leader over your home, and how has that panned out for you through your 23 years, understanding the culture here in Canada and from wherever it is you came from? I know some people moved from Nigeria to the UK to Canada, but however it is, how has your understanding of living in this culture actually evolved through the times, and how you parent your 19-year-old, and I think your twins, your 16-year-olds, right? How has that changed for you?
Yeah, 17, 16, and 16.
1766.
Well,
Perfect.
So they were all born here. So I do not have a Nigerian perspective of parenting. I mean, what I have is how I was parented, right? I mean, my parents and their method of discipline, instruction, and guidance. I was 6 out of 7, so I saw my older ones, what they did or how they did it. For me, I have kept mine very simple. I look at my value system. What do I value the most? So I do not look at what society is doing, because a large portion of society may have gone crazy. Question is, are you going to blend with society, or are you going to resist the flow? So it's easy to go in the direction of the flow. However, you have to, if you are gunning for something different, you have to go in the opposite direction of the flow. Let me give you a typical example. Library cards are free, but over 90% of people do not have a library card, right? So the majority of people will do other things, but that which would contribute to their progress. So what I've done is to keep it very simple. What are my value systems? What do I value, and what do I see as what did my parents do for me that helped me? I went to University of Nigeria, Nsukka, and then I got a scholarship and came over here to do my program, and then I've been here since then. So I asked myself, which is what I share with my kids. I say, hey, listen, here is what I did. When my friends were going to Paris, I didn't deem it fit to go. I had other views in mind. I had a different goal, a different perspective. And I mean, it's if you could see the other side, you know where you're headed. If you do not have a vision of the future, nothing pulls you through. So those are the pictures I try to paint, even as I try to discipline. I know there are other ways other kids do their things, or what my kids tell me, similar to what Amina said. I think I adopt a similar approach. If you come with problems, I don't want to solve it for you. Show me, you solve it yourself. So I ask you all the questions, go through all the details. Because if I'm going to solve it for you, then you're going to be limp and weak. Go solve it. Go to your room, go back to your room, do the thinking, and come back and tell me your solution, right? So I try to do something somewhat different from what I see all around me, because all around us, we have stories of success, stories of excellence, and then there's a large majority of what you don't deem successful, whether it's immorality or work ethics. There's just a lot more than the kind of thing we want to model. So before I jump into the rest of the discourse, so those are the way I've kept it very simple. My value system, and how do I pass it on in the juxtapose to the environment we live in.
It's interesting that you'd speak about value systems. And Dr. Jane, I'm curious about this. When I know you appear to be a friendly, playful, jovial person, especially from the way you introduced yourself. I'm curious to how you balance your value systems versus your children being your friends. I know there was one, I think it was in April, the person who spoke, or maybe one of the sessions, says, I think he mentioned something that he's not his children's friends, he's their parents. Do you have that mindset or mentality as well? But how do you balance value system, the relationship with your children, and potentially swimming against the tide when it seems like the value systems you're trying to indoctrinate in your kids is countercultural? How do you get to manage these streams?
Okay. Thank you for the question. Disclaimer, my kids are young, so I don't have the wealth of experience that Chijioke here has, or maybe other people. So I'm not speaking for parenting teenagers. I don't have any experience there. So, and I'm the last one, so I don't have younger ones that I'm gonna say, okay, this is how my parents did it and stuff. But I'm just gonna speak for what applied for me personally. I've recognized the fact that we are in Canada. I've also recognized the fact that as much as I try to be like my mom, the way my mom raised me, which was successful. It may not, if I decide to copy it hook, line, and sinker, or if I decide to copy it like 100% and apply it to my kids today, it probably won't work. Not because it's not a good model, but because we are in a different location. So yes, to answer your question, me growing up, I didn't grow up with my mom is my friend, my dad is my friend mentality. I grew up with, I tell you what to do and you do it. That's it. There's no other like you, this is what you're going to study in school, this is where you're going to be, that kind of mentality, which paid off, I would say. I mean, I'm here, I'm who I am today, right? But it won't work, or I don't, well, I wouldn't say it won't. I don't think it would work. So I'm doing more of a blended style, adopting what I've learned from my parents, what I've learned from people around me, my siblings and friends, because I like to learn a lot from people's experiences. That's the best teacher anyways. And then I also go by the basic principles. And for me, for our family, we're Christians, and all those basic principles are in the Bible. After all, the Bible says if we train up our kids in the way of the Lord, when they grow up, they don't depart from it. Is it always true? Maybe not. There are people who grew up in the church and with the basic principles and they departed. But it's our prayer that we do our part and that when they grow up, they keep up with it. So that's basically what I do now. Am I my kids' friends? I don't know. Unfortunately, I can't answer that. I try my best to give them a friendly approach. Of course, I still have my mean mommy version of me, but I try to keep it, you can tell me whatever, and we can talk about it, we can chat and play. But like I said, disclaimer, my kids are still young, so I don't know that what I'm doing is working, but I think it is because so far so good. Culturally, I try to, the one thing we agreed as a family is we would not lose our identity when we come here. Are we going to be able to preserve it 100% like if we were in Nigeria? Probably not. I mean, we're here. But are we going to try? Yeah. So we're going to try to teach our language to the kids as much as we can. We're going to try to encourage them to speak, not because we want them to go out and say, oh, I can speak Igbo or whatever. No, but it's just a way for us to remind them of who they are. This is just the approach that I'm taking or that we're taking here. Again, all of that, because I don't want to put you are different mentality in my kids, because you know how kids are. They go out and they start dwelling on the fact that they are different. But I always try to come from the angle of you are unique and you are Nigerian. You have to remember that we have a way, they've come to understand the way Nigerians do things. So we've tried to teach them that, so that in all their learning, in all their blending in the public, in all their acquisition, so long as if this is what I think, this is what I believe, so long as you remember where you're coming from, then it I feel like it will shape them into making choices that will reflect who they are. So we are big on who you are versus do this way, do this that way. That's basically what we are more of, because I feel like that's what will give them the foundation to be able to go in there, meet people that are doing different kinds of things that are acceptable here, but not compliant with who we are. That's what we're doing. So your question about me, whether I'm their friends or not, maybe I'll say 50-50, maybe, if at all. Yeah. Thank you.
And one thing that struck me about your contributions right now is the fact that you kept using the word we. I noticed that when parenting, is divergent. When the father is thinking one thing and the mother is thinking another thing, it can be extremely challenging to parent the kids, and that's a great highlight that you call out here. Now, I know there will be times where we get to be as playful, friendly, keep that open channel, come down to the level of our kids to have a good interaction with them. But to your point, there is a time when we also bring out the stick, not just the carrot, and then tell them we're laying down the law. This is what must be. If you will live in my house, this is the appropriate way. I've been there, I've done that, and I'm guiding you to do this. Alternatively, it's the highway, but as long as you're in my house, as long as you're this age, these are my instructions and my guidelines for you. So thanks for sharing, Dr. Jane.
Borrow that line. I like that line. I'm gonna borrow it.
Yeah. All right. Dr. Olamide, I'm curious to know. Let's start the conversations around effective discipline strategies now. I had the opportunity one day when my wife and I went out to a play area, and it was an indoor playground. And then there was this kid who was actually getting upset and throwing a tantrum. And while throwing the tantrum, the mom was trying to calm this boy down, and he was very aggressive and was throwing the F bombs at the mom. Like, I was convulsing. I was like, what's happening? And all the mom could do was try to like hold him down, apologize to him, tell him it's okay, tell him to stop. I'm like, wait, what? For as many of you who come from Nigeria, you don't just you can't even throw the F bomb at your parent. How? Where? So on one extreme, are parents who feel it's comfortable to watch their kids throw the F bomb without consequences. On another extreme, are parents who sometimes we grew up in situations whereby we had dedicated cane, or your parent that would tell you, if I slap you from where I'm sitting, you will see double from where you are far there. What is the ideal recommended, or how do we balance the approach to discipline for our kids and our families? I'm curious to know why. I'm asking this from a father perspective and also from a psychologist, a registered, a practicing psychologist. What do you see, and what would be your recommendations about this?
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, let me also put out a quick disclaimer. First of all, I'm not a doctor yet. I'm still work in progress, but I'm practicing. So thank you for that. So honestly, discipline would definitely have to come from where my fellow guest speakers have actually come from, value system. Okay, and when we talk about these things, it's a very I would say tricky in the sense that I have worked with kids from the lens of a parent and from the lens of the kids themselves, and sometimes as parents we doing what is right by us, but unfortunately does not go down well with the kids, and definitely leads on to this mental stress we're talking about, because they see the parents as nagging, as not understanding, and it becomes a whole kettle of fish altogether. So I would say I usually on the fence, because it's all about what helps this individual at the end of the day. So let's unpack what we're talking about when we talk about discipline. Most parents, and I stand to be corrected, especially from that African, background that most of us come from. It's about punishment, strict rules. I lay it down like this, and that's it. You follow it. Unfortunately, that is not what discipline really is, right? Discipline is more of it should be used as a tool, to shape and help foster self-control and responsibility. So for that kid, for example, that you saw at the playground and was just throwing this F bomb and all that stuff. Well, it didn't just happen. It did not just start from that. Wasn't the first time, and even if it were, for the kid to be very, very, persistent, and then that okay, they've been trying it out. Okay, it's going, it's flying. So that is where you tie those things to values, right? What are the value system based upon in the family. So that is that. There are different parenting styles, and I'm guessing we know quite a couple, whether it's laissez-faire, whether it's authoritarian, or depending on that parenting style. So as a father, as a psychologist, regardless, I lean towards what uh, others have said in the past, your values. Okay, and one of the values for me, it depends on how you this. I wouldn't say there's the best value, right? But it depends on every individual. Okay, so for me, my religious background is very important as a value that it's the number one for me. So like Dr. Jane said, for example, that train up a child in the way it should go, and when it's old, they will not depart from it. Well, we might see some kids eventually depart from it, but that does not mean the Bible is in any way fallible. It's infallible. The kids, they don't depart from it. Where actually it goes wrong is, from my understanding, is the understanding of how parents pass on, how you train that child. If it is wrong, if it's not well balanced, then it will definitely not be what the Bible is talking about, because the Bible is not exactly clear on train the child this way, right? It just says train a child in the way it should go. So that means most of us parents, we want our kids to live their life through us. What those things you could not achieve, those things that you want to see your child achieve. I couldn't achieve this, and then this is how you should go, because we think that is the right thing, right? But the Bible is the only, or any other kind of, depending on, I wouldn't, for me, right? Yes, we have people with different religions, yeah, and how we pass those things across. So that is it. As a father, I try to, and we want to understand as well that there are different stages of social development for kids. As parents, or myself, I think I should keep restricting to myself, is I understand that there's a particular level of relationship. It must always evolve. So parenting is not something that is easy. It's fun, challenging, but very rewarding when we get it right. So the way you would relate, communicate, engage with your toddler up until that, say before preteen, is different. You can hand down instructions, you can guide them. But the moment they begin to become teenagers, now you want to start having conversations, because they are more inquisitive. There's that tendency, by research, of course, they begin to draw away from the parents because you become boring, basically. So you have to step up your game, if you want to put it that way. So it changes. Now they become adolescents fully, that has to then, it changes again. So if we want to use, I've always told you, this is it, we will lose it at some point. And that's where the problem gets in. Or when they become young adults, in this part of the world, 18 years, and then you're an adult. I don't think that is true for most of us African parents, 18. You are still a baby. What do you say? Boy, of course, you're an adult. Who says you're an adult? But you also have to understand that, well, that means now I'm going to go to the next level of relationship. So that is how, as a psychologist, I try to understand young people, and to be able to support them by understanding the different levels of stress at different times, and different treatment approaches that works for them. And then as a father as well, I try to implement that same thing. Understand, I have a 13-year-old daughter. So for us that got kids, and girls in particular, it's not the same as boys. We all know that. So you just have to, have these conversations. And I'm in the thick of that period where it's conversation every day, every time. It can be very tiring, but that is the best approach, not the only way, but the best to, not only keep them in line with your own religious belief because you know that's the right thing. They are still trying to figure it out. And you just want them to, continue to develop in that same mindset, that same frame of mind, so that when they grow, it's not going to be, they are always pushing me to church. They force me to mosque. They force me to do this. So you're forcing them. So they see, all they see is you impose it. You're imposing. So now the little freedom they get, I can do what I like, and freedom is not free. So that is what happens. So if only we begin to see discipline more as not an avenue to, hand down instructions, but as an opportunity to shape and, help foster self-control and make them more responsible, then we can achieve more from what we're trying to, get them to do in terms of discipline.
Okay, if I just jump in a little bit. So for every speaker, you have just 2 minutes to speak. Just 2 minutes. And after 2 minutes, we will try, we are not disrespecting you, but so that we can, go through everything that we need to go through tonight. So I'll just please try to keep it within 2 minutes because we don't want, to just jump in and stop your conversation. So please try to keep it within 2 minutes. I just want to say again, also, can we also try to make our conversations very, very, as in like bring it home. Let's bring it home, like so that people can understand. People have challenges that they're going through at home. I have my challenge, you have your challenge. So whatever we're saying, let's try to bring it home that, oh, this is what my kid, this is how my kids see, this is how I discipline my kids, this is what has worked so far, this is what has not worked, and all of that. So let's try to bring everything back home. Thank you again, Olamide. Over to you, Ike.
Thank you very much. Great call outs. Chijioke, I'm coming to you, and this is going to be a packed question. But while we're doing this, we've got about 54 participants on the call. I'd love for us to start thinking through. I want people to share their real life experiences. If you have questions, sharing comments, or actual questions for our guests, I'd love for you to actually unmute yourselves or even share it in the chat so we can actually go through it or walk through these real life experiences and examples. Chijioke, I'm curious. Now, when it comes to discipline, like I said, it's a packed question. How do you balance what you're teaching your kids at home versus what's going on in school and other people, be it in their friends group or in church, wherever that is? And then how do you also tailor or tie this to their self-confidence, their awareness, and as well their identity? Because that's a big thing. And I know Aminat spoke about this.
Yep.
Her dress code, the color of her skin, this plays a whole lot into her identity, and she ensures she takes this into how she carries herself and the lessons that she actually passes on to her kids. So I'm actually curious how you discipline, ensure that consistency, and how you also ensure that it affects or at least positively impacts their identity and the way they carry themselves.
Okay. Well, that's a part question. You're right. I wanted to say something, so let me start so I can keep it within 2 minutes. If you're in an airplane and something appears to be going wrong, they say, parents, you put on your mask on first, not the kids, yours first. And the rule is, if the parents are okay, the kids will be okay. The chances are higher if the parents are okay, the kids will be okay. So for me, I teach biblical principles, and they know it, they see it in the way I walk, in the way I relate with others. So there's something to model. The example you gave about the kid throwing the tantrum out in the public, I never saw that in my own family. My mom, she looks at me, I understand what she's trying to say. I change my behavior. And I just say, you know what, I'm going to do the same. It looks simple. It looks straightforward. If I'm in church, my son is doing something, I look at him, he understands. Don't do that. He gets it, right? Because before I use my eyes, we've spoken about it, we've discussed it. I told them this is why this is awful, right? This is why this will not take you to where you are headed in life. So is principle after principle, and I have lots of discussions. So they come back from school. Who are your friends? What did they say? What are they doing? Do you think it's correct? Do you think it's right? So we have this discussion. I've been having discussion for a long. I've been discussing like this since they were 7, 8, 9, 10. And there are things I try to avoid. You spoke about, so I'm trying to go through as quickly as possible given the time we have. You spoke about self-esteem. I mean, so what I avoid with all the friends I've had all these years, I don't talk about race. It doesn't matter, right? You can be the very best at what you do. Forget about your skin color. It doesn't matter, right? It makes no difference. So which means if somebody ever says so, so I encourage them to have friends from everywhere. My kids have friends from Iran, Mexico, whatever. They have friends from everywhere. So if they tell me they have only some Nigerian friends, I say, why is that? Why would you do that? What about, so now they have friends everywhere, white, from Middle East, from everywhere. And I want to know the experiences they share and what you believe. Do you think it's correct? Do you think it's wrong? So, and I bring it back to central value system we teach every day when we read Bibles and when we pray, right? So I keep it to, so once they have an anchor in these basic principles, the rest is easy. So when they see a kid throwing that tantrum and doing, they will say, I could never do that. They say themselves, I don't have to say it to them. And the idea of 18, oh, when I'm 18, I'm an adult, we discuss, we say, not here. I said, in this house, 18 means nothing to me. Those numbers created by society artificially are deceptive and they are misleading. And so my daughter has come to understand that, listen, their brains keep developing until they're 25. I said, there you go. I said, you and I will keep talking until we are married. We are going to keep talking. We are going to keep developing. If you have a problem, talk to me. Let's resolve these problems together. And this is at all costs. I have ongoing discussions and I discipline with, I did some spanking. So you spoke about parents having different views. I did more spanking than my wife. So she didn't want spanking. And then, so eventually we met in the middle. Some spanking, sometimes I say, listen, I'm going to spank my son. So could you please go to the other room because you may not like it. So she agreed, right? So she knows it's the right thing because of a behavior that was not right. I mean, spanking is not reckless beating until you can see the marks. No, this is just discipline. Like Olamide said, there's a purpose to the discipline. It is not just discipline because you want to hand out instruction. So that's the way I've kept it. And with that, I had less frustration. It keeps it easy for me. And then I make my 3 kids be accountable to each other. So that's the other way I do it. So did what do you think about what the other one did? Do you think it's correct? Tell me why it's wrong. Please, could you go talk to him? Because next time he does it, I'm going to do this. I'm going to keep your phone for 2 weeks. Say, oh no, I don't want that to happen. So, simple things here and there that will help them, mold better behaviors and, we'll find what works. When I was growing up, I had no phone, so that couldn't be a punishment for me. And I think Dr. Jane mentioned it. We do something, we adapt to the system. So I adapt what works, what is effective. And then as they grow older, between 10, 12, 13, now 17, I change something, right? I look you in the face. I want you to talk to me and tell me why you did what you did or why you said what you said. Now I'm having less and less of those to deal with because they've modeled the right behavior all these years.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that feedback. I think that a couple of things that stand out. You're saying you emulate the value system. They see you. What they behold is what they become. So you're not just telling them and throwing instructions at them. You are showing them what it means to walk under or within these value systems or within these boundaries. And I also love the fact that you spoke about intentional disciplining. It's not about spanking them. It's about finding those things that will impact them when they do wrong. Like for our kids, sometimes it's taking their phone. or telling them you can't go to a certain place or you can't do a certain activity, or being intentional about that discipline approach. So thank you very much for that. I can see a question from Mariam, and this is a sensitive question, especially considering the environment we're in. And I'm hoping we can give this a few minutes to talk about it. And then to open that conversation, I mean, I would give it to you, and then Jane, you can speak on that. And she's asking, please, how do you deal with gay/gender questions? We are in a community where gender fluidity is respected. In my office, we have male, female, and gender neutral bathrooms. And there's a whole lot around sexuality versus gender and all of those conversations. How do you manage it? And how does that align with your value system, or your, as a Muslim for you, Aminat, or as a Christian for you, Jane? How do you navigate these conversations?
Okay. For me, first of all, we look at things through the lens of our values. And we have a set of values that we all sat down and formulated together. And we look at it and say, where is the first point of call whenever we are looking to, balance our views on issues? And we know that is the Quran. And so we look at what the Quran says about whatever issue they've come to me with, and we go from there. There is no place for this kind of behavior in the Quran. Some liberal people would say, oh, there is, but we go down to pick up the Quran, the translation, and we read it together and we try to understand it. And then we discuss on respecting people, irrespective of who you are. You are human and you are sacred to God, because the person could change. Who are you to kind of castigate who that person is or that person? But we do not tolerate what that person is doing. The act is what we do not tolerate. But the person is a person. And you have to always, extend kindness to them. They're human. And so you should respect them. They have the same, they have equal rights as you in terms of, being human. And so whatever, if we're talking about maybe medical issues, changing also, gender affirming care and all that, we can go down and talk about how is it destructive, and I allow them to just kind of share what their perspective is. And I round it up with, okay, this is what our values are, and this is how we should look at issues like this. What if this? What if that? I try as much as possible not to come from it. And sometimes you just have to say, well, it's not possible. Like, this is what it is, and that's it. Because you're not at that age where you know better than me, right? I give you, but I want you to be able to think about it critically through the lens. So for me, it's more of looking through the lens of our values, the Quran, and, our African values. What led to this? We look at history a lot. How did this even start? It has always been there from the time of Nuh, alayhi salatu wasalam. So it's not new. And that's why it's even mentioned in the Quran. So it's not entirely new, but the only thing is that the people that are doing this feel that they have a right, and so we must respect them as human beings. But we do not tolerate what they do. And you have every right to, to say, hey, I respect you as human, and I understand that you're equal, but my religion, and I encourage them to say that my religion, my culture do not agree with what you do. It's fine. It's not fight. The person may not agree with you on other things as well, and it's not the end of the world, right? So I encourage them to challenge, but be polite and, be careful of how you say it. So we might dwell a lot on communication. That's my answer to that.
Beautiful. I hold you not to my standards. My standards are my standards. My values are my values. I respect you as a human being, but understand that I hold myself to my value system and my standards. Dr. Jane, I don't know if you've been following the news, but I think a little over 2 weeks ago or so, the NDP, Daniel Smith's party, I think they passed I don't know, it's a bylaw or something that had to do with sexual training, and the fact that they had, I think a few days ago, not even a few weeks ago, where sexual training and orientation in schools can only be done if a parent gives their consent. So they're trying to reverse the approach or the strategy around this communication. I think prior, a teacher in school can actually teach sex education without necessarily seeking, you would have to opt out. As against right now, they are changing the narrative. You have to opt in. And there was a significant uproar in Alberta. What was the take on that? And also responding to this question, how did that make you feel? I'm sure you've been here for a while, so you know how those conversations actually flow and go. So what are your thoughts around this in probably 2 minutes?
Yeah. So my thoughts, my thoughts are simple and straightforward. I 100% agree with what Amina just said, because that's what we also say. If you recall, when I started speaking, I said our focus is in teaching you who you are and inculcating our basic principles, which are enshrined in the Bible, in our kids. Because whenever that discussion comes up, the first thing I ask is, okay, and what does the Bible say about this? And he already knows what the Bible says about it. And what do we back at home, if you were in Nigeria today, what would be your reaction or your response to this? And they already know. So it goes back to what they know and what they are being taught. However, again, we are here and we have to, it's a diverse country, it's a diverse environment, and there are different people who believe in what you believe in, people who believe in what you believe in, but not like you believe in it, and people who do not even believe that there's any other whatever. But I tell what we try to say to them is people are different and it's fine. Just like we are Nigerians, just like you're Black, this is what or who they have decided that they want to be, and that's fine. Is it right? It's not our place to tell them if it's right or wrong, because the question always is it right? And I'm like, for them, it doesn't matter to us. It's what they want to do, they do them. But my question to you is it right? And then I get the answer that I'm looking for. No, this is not what is in the Bible. The Bible says, at least I know that you know what it should be. Now, how does it make me feel? Scared? A little bit. Not just because of the fact that, I'm scared that, it will come to me and my family, but I wonder, the influence is a lot. So it gives us double the work that we have to do as parents, because you have to constantly remind them and intentionally let them know to hold on to that value, because they now go into a place where you're not only minority by color, you're minority by what you believe in, and you're minority by what you practice. So there's a lot. And it ends up affecting, if they are not grounded, they are not well grounded in their values and opinions, then it gets to the point where it gets to them. So that's why I said sometimes it makes me feel scared, but I'm also happy. Even with the uproar, I'm also happy that people are beginning to realize that every child is a minor. You need a parent to consent for a minor. And it didn't make sense to me. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it didn't make sense to me that in certain situations, then the children will be made to make that decision themselves. But anyways, for me and my household, we go by our basic principles.
Well said. Now, I want us to take a very practical example, Olamide, and I'm coming to you. A child or a kid or a teenager who respects you a lot comes to you, and this is a segue into recognizing even early signs of mental health struggles. It may or may not be, but someone who respects you comes to you and then he tells you, hey, Uncle Olamide, I respect you so much. I can't have these conversations with my parents, but I want to open up with you or to you. I'm coming out of the closet. I am not what my sex says. I feel my gender is this. These are real situations and real conversations that I know have happened. How would you approach it, or how would you recommend? What would be your suggestions based on your experience or not, or otherwise, for a parent who is having to face these types of hard conversations, or even an uncle and auntie who is having to face this conversation with someone who they know, if they don't handle it's a delicate conversation. If they don't handle it appropriately, this kid could actually go spiral down. What would be your recommendations? What are the tips and tools that you would suggest or recommend here?
Wow, that's a very tough question. I see this, well, I wouldn't say all the time, but I've seen it a couple of times. Although not that very familiar relationship where, hey, Uncle Lamide, so, but with students generally, like I said, I've worked in schools where this kind of things happen. So it becomes very tricky in the sense that my values, just like Dr. Jane and Amina said, that is 110%. And I'm guessing most of us on this forum may agree with that as well, that, that's just what it is. God, most of us who believe in God, that God loves sinners, he hates sin. So you just have to respect them. You just have to show them love. They don't know better, right? It's a state of identity confusion, kind of. Just most of them, when you get to talk to them, especially those very young ones up until, or even very young adults, you can tell they don't really know what they're doing. And that's why I'm 100%, and I don't shy away from it, that UCP's announcement through Daniel Smith, like, oh yeah, I buy into it hook, line, and sinker. However, as a psychologist, it becomes ethical then. So these are very, very careful lines you want to tread on, because then it becomes you're not supporting this person, and you might want to do them, you might want to harm them, even if you don't have the right support. So I, as a person, what I do with those kind of, if there's no personal relationship, like you said, to be honest, I try as much as possible to hand them over to someone, which is what is ethically acceptable, to hand them over to those who understand how best to support them, right? But if it's someone who it's personal, that I know you, and this is what you come into, you're trying to confide in me. To be honest, instead of, I would not go to the parent just right away. To be, I think that is one way I would approach it. Is first of all, because you have to build trust. The person is coming to you because they trust you, and not because they don't trust their parents, but because they are scared, because of anxiety, right? And they know what might happen if they eventually. So to just go straight to the point would be, my work with them would be to build trust to a point where we can have this very tricky conversations around managing the anxiety. What is the worst that can happen if you get to talk to your parents? Because they are the ones who will be there for you. I might move out of the city tomorrow, I'm gone. Your parents expectedly will be there for you. They are your closest support system. So what I work with that individual to a point where they trust me enough, and they trust themselves enough to, express themselves and be comfortable with whatever consequence, because that is what trust is about. When you trust yourself that I'm making the right decision, good or bad, whatever comes out of it, then you are more likable to manage the stress. And this is mental health. But if you don't trust yourself enough to make a decision, and then blaming starts, shaming starts, guilt becomes unmanageable. So I think that is one way, work with that individual, that kid, to trust me enough, and then we can gradually, demystify those things hanging on them to pass on that message to their parents.
Trust, trust, trust. And I mean, these are very difficult conversations to be had. Um, Personally, also, I might want to even think if a child or a person is reacting or responding this way, is there an underlying conversation that's leading this person in this path, and maybe having to unearth that issue, the root cause itself? Does this person not feel safe in their skin when they are interacting with certain people or in school, or are there people making them feel like they don't deserve to be who they are or treat them better? Or I've also heard another story where people have seen them treat their siblings, who is an opposite sex, better, and because of that, they feel like they want to be this person. But I'm curious here, Chijioke, what would you do in this situation? Not like you've been in this situation, and I'm hoping, I know, that we never face it, but how would you address these types of conflicts? And then before you do, let's give Stella, and then I'll come to you, Chijioke. Stella, did you have something to say in line with this as well?
Sorry, this is not Stella. It's the husband.
Go ahead, Stella's husband. In less than
That's
2 minutes. What's the name, sir?
My name is Alex.
Alex, please go ahead.
Yeah, while this was raised, my wife reminded me that I should be have I been having conversation with my son, who is 13 years and is he's taller than me by he can use his chin to knock on my head, So we wrestle, we do boxing together, karate and taekwondo. But the thing is, and he's now tapping me out, But the fact is, he's having puberty hair and 13 years and growing strong. But my wife just asked me, I hope you have been I hope you've been having conversation with him about intimacy with kids, women, and so on. Because when we went to the school, sometime the teachers earlier, he's in grade 9, and the teachers told us at this age that they have begun to have friends, kakusis and friends and girlfriends and talking to. So what I'm now asking is, so I told my wife, somehow, sometimes he comes naked before you too, irrespective of his puberty age, because you are his mother. So two of us should talk to him together about women and men affair. My wife is saying, no, it's your duty. I should be talking to him alone. So should I be the one talking to him alone on what the intimacy between man and woman, or what should I do?
Chijioke, you could touch briefly on that comment around how do you manage the sexuality of someone you trust. But after you address Mr. Alex's question, and I know Dr. Jane had touched on it already, but I don't want to take words out of her mouth. I want you to respond to Mr. Alex's question. How do you address this? Is it a he question, or is it a we question?
And then
correct, exactly.
Respond to the question, and then what else? What else?
How would you address a situation whereby a toddler or a teenager comes to you to speak about their sexuality? What would you do in that situation?
So no, let me just get clear. So about sexuality, is it with respect to the fad and some trends and transgenderism, or that nature?
Correct.
Okay.
No.
If a child.
Okay, so
let's break it down. Chijioke, I know that's not your question, Mr. Alex. So you know what, Chijioke, address Mr. Alex's question. Should he be the one responsible for coaching his toddler or his teenager about sexuality? Is grade 9 about sexuality, is not going naked and all, or should it be the responsibility of he and his wife? That's his question. Mr. Alex, correct me. I stand correct. Is that it?
Yes. And then should I be the only one telling him that don't go intimate with any girl this time, you're still too young? Because anything that is that crosses the border, it could pregnant a girl. You know what I mean? And because he is getting big, even though he's 13. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
should
sure.
it be only my responsibility?
And this is even a fitting question
No.
for you, Chijioke, because your kids are 17 and 16, right? So
Yeah, no, it should be the two of you. So what we did was, I don't remember the name of the textbook now, but we got a really good textbook that discusses those subjects. We didn't let the teachers do that teaching. No, because you never can tell what they're going to teach, right?
Absolutely.
Many kids have been
Absolutely.
misled with dangerous ideologies from school.
Absolutely.
So we said, no, you are not responsible. We parents are the ultimate ones responsible for passing those type of teachings, not them.
Mhm.
Because if you ask them, they will tell you that, yeah, your son should have a girlfriend now. They can, but they should be safe. I mean, that's completely, I don't know. I mean, that's nonsense, right? You can't tell my kid you should have a girlfriend or a boyfriend. That's irresponsible. You know, you are 13 now, you know, other kids like you are having girlfriends, therefore you do so. No. So, but we had to pass that on. From around the age of 10 was when we discussed it. We got a really nice textbook, a textbook dedicated to subjects like this, and say, hey, this is what happens, you know, this is what happens at this stage. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to watch out for. We went through it, they understood it. It was clear. And when they discuss those subjects at school, they are not in the class, right? I think, and I want to just delve into something as quickly as possible before I leave this. So society evolved through policy making. What we see today that never existed before was because politicians put them in place. We would never be discussing some of these subjects if they didn't make it easy for teachers to harass students. So that said, get involved. Like we get involved. We make sure whichever school my kids go to, my wife was involved in the Parents Teachers Association. I was involved. At some point, she was the head of it. She was in the council meetings to discuss policy making. What should we do? What should we not do? Now, if you're on the outside looking in, you are going to be on the defense all the time. So you need to get involved and ask questions. There were things that my when they were in grade 9, the principal was going to do. I asked him a question. I said, are you, the Alberta Act for Education for Kids says A, B, and C. Why are you taking this action? He came back, he apologized. I said, no, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I said, don't do that again, right? We do that all the time. There was a time they were going to bring one transgender person to teach in my kids' school. I said, listen, are you okay if I bring my pastor to come and preach to all the students in your school? They backed off. They never did it again. So we have to get involved, right? Otherwise, they shove it down your throat, and now you're on your knees begging. So you be the ones telling them, stop, right? So we need to get involved. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great call out, Chijioke. And this is not saying be involved in the politics. If you can, do. But if you must join the school board, do it. Be aware of what's happening, and don't just be aware, be an active participant in formulation of those policies and regulations as well. Be a gatekeeper. Great share, Chijioke. I just want to go into the chats. I'm seeing some of the messages that are being dropped here, and I'm just going to read through.
Sorry,
Chijioke,
quickly.
yes.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt in the middle of talking. But I just wanted to add to what my husband was saying. So I think the question he asked is completely off what I was talking to him about. So about talking to our child about his adolescent, we've done some of that, and I've done some with him. What I was telling my husband is there are some things that are innate man to man boy things, even though I've explained what from the book part. Like if I have a daughter, there are things that my husband might not be able to pass on to my daughter. So that's what I was asking him if he can be doing. So yeah. So sorry, because he got the question.
You don't have to be sorry.
Clarifying. Thanks for clarifying, Stella. Yes. To his point, and I stand to be corrected here. To his point, there are conversations that the both of you can have. But I agree as well, Stella. There are certain conversations a father must have with his son. it does not sit well when it comes from the mother, or sometimes the boys could take it with levity. There are certain conversations. My sons are 7 and going to be 7 in February and 5 right now. There are certain conversations, even at this stage, that when they hear it from me, it carries more weight than if it were my wife who was to have those dialogues or conversations with them. So absolutely, I agree. It's about knowing which one of those conversations need to be had with you, Mr. Alex, versus those that either one of you can actually drive. I mean, single parent home, it's usually a hassle or a hurdle when a man has to train up kids from both sexes. Having those conversations with the female children can be tough. Same thing as well for a woman having conversations with her man child, right, or her boy child or children, right? It's tough. So it's understanding that it's a tag team, both of you are involved in the process, and knowing where one person takes the lead in the conversation versus the other.
Thank you.
Yes, awesome.
Can you help me raise my hand down?
Can I just?
Okay, I can do that for you. It's fine.
Yes, Dr. Jane, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just going to chip in that, of course, in addition to what has been said, when it comes to discussions like this, I always like to maintain the we front, so that I think the conversation, I mean, I haven't gotten there, but I think the conversation will usually start with both of us, like the parents. What do we want them to do? What do we want them to know?
Absolutely.
If we know where we want to start from, like example, a 13-year-old, then we take it from there. Now, both of them or both of us can start off the conversation. Both of us will make our stand known. You have friends in school, and do you have friends? What's going on in school? Blah, blah, blah. And then obviously they will have friends in school that are getting into relationships and all of that. Then you make your stand known to them, and then the nitty-gritty of the conversation, and maybe I'm inexperienced, maybe, but I also think that there are some aspects of the boy growing up that the fathers will do better, because they are going to be talking from experience, right? So they're going to be sharing what worked, what they regretted doing, what they wish they knew at their age, kind of thing. I don't know those things. So yes, I agree that it would be done as a united, you present a united front, so that it's not a question of A saying A and B saying B. A and B should be saying A or B. That's just what I wanted to add.
Great addition, Dr. Jane. Thank you very much. And I would be remiss not to read out the last comment from Marie. She says, as parents, let's try to give time to our children. Children's definition of love is different on how we define it. For them, love equals time. I make sure that I take my kid for a date every month. I was literally having this conversation with my wife, I think a couple of days ago, where each child has their play dates in a month and we just chat, onboarding, interact, play, converse. So great share. Thank you very much for this, Marie. And then one more comment. Olushare says, whoever knows best how to handle it should take on the responsibility and let the other person share their own perspective. Parents are responsible based on their family values. I want to emphasize this because sometimes, and this ties into Marie's comments, we are so busy and we feel, let the school, let the teachers be responsible to train the kids. And then we run into challenges where either the kids are detached from us, or we realize that we can no longer speak into their lives, or the wrong systems have been inculcated or indoctrinated into these kids. So we need to be careful to invest time, give time, energy, and attention to our kids. And Kingsley also says this lastly, sex education, sex education, sex education. This cannot be emphasized enough. Let who is best at it do the discussion. I do with my male kids and my wife with a girl child. And I think we've emphasized this already. I want us to do a little bit of a segue, and I'm hoping Dr. Jane can geek on us a little for a few minutes on what ADHD is. I didn't really understand or appreciate the context of ADHD until I came to Canada, right? And you would appreciate the fact that I'm sure we experience this in Nigeria, but it's not well spoken about there, right? So, Dr. Jane, what is ADHD? How do we identify ADHD? And how do we provide support for ADHD?
Okay. So what, how, identify. All right. So let's start with what ADHD is not. Then I'll come to your question. Okay. So first of all, ADHD is not a bad omen. ADHD is not a forbidden illness or condition. And ADHD is not a disease. And it's also not a psychiatric problem. So let's go back to the points that you want us to talk about. What is ADHD? Simply put, it's a disturbance in attention and hyperactivity. Simply put, forgetting all the medical jargons, it's just a disturbance in attention and activity level. So there are two components to it. There is the inattentiveness part of it, and then there is a hyperactivity part of it. It goes way beyond just inattentiveness and hyperactivity, because who isn't inattentive and who isn't hyperactive? In my opinion, ADHD is a spectrum, even though it's not described as a spectrum in the literatures. But I would describe it as a spectrum for the singular reason that if you look back growing up, even in Nigeria, and even here, I'm pretty sure if you look through your classroom, there are some kids that you would remember that we used to call them restless children. They just would not sit still. They just would not stay still. But those kids were doing well in class. And they all went from primary school to secondary, and they are very independent and doing everything for themselves, which is why I said, in my opinion, I think it's a spectrum, because whereas there are some kids there are some individuals who have ADHD and they are fine and functioning and doing everything well, there are others who will need some help. Because you see, the problem with ADHD is not just that this child is inattentive or hyperactive, but the fact that it affects their learning. If it begins to affect function or learning, then it's a problem, because we need the child to learn when the child should be learning, and we need the child to be functional. So if the inattentiveness and the hyperactivity is affecting function or learning, then that's when we begin to consider it as a medical problem, and then we want to start intervening. How do we identify it? Back at home, I'm sure, those kids, this child is very stubborn, no be day one place, doesn't listen, doesn't pay attention. I think maybe some of those could be ADHD. In Nigeria, we basically just call them stubborn children, that they don't like sitting in one place. But you see, there's something I think maybe also helped in Nigeria, because in Nigeria, there was no option for not succeeding. We were not given that option. So in your stubbornness and in your inattentiveness, you must hear word and you must learn the hard way. So maybe that also helped protecting the individuals that have ADHD, and maybe it helped them outgrow it. I don't know. Maybe the psychologist here will throw more insight on that. But here in this environment, things are different. The learning pattern is different, and the expectation is also different. So how do you identify it in this environment in Canada? The first thing, almost always, most parents will know their children that are restless and blah, blah, blah. Most parents know, but because of what we've been used to, we don't target that as parents. But the moment they go to school, the ones that the teachers will mention to you that there's something going on. And when they do, they're not saying it from, like, most teachers don't even like tagging kids, to be honest. So they will say it from a place of the child maybe needs help. Now, it's not, that doesn't give them a diagnosis, because there's now going to be a series of process to now come up with a diagnosis, right? So that's how to identify it. A kid who, never sits still, never sits in class, is easily distractible in class, gets irritable easily in class or at home. Of course, the symptoms should be reproduced in both situations, both in more than two environments, so home and in school. That child, like they don't sit through, if it's the younger kids, they don't sit through, what is it called, story time or cycle time. So that's where they start. And that's how you know. Now, most kids will be able to make it through their elementary days without the help of medications. Because like I said, I think it's a spectrum, but there are some kids who will not be able to. Now, how do we identify it? If you ever get a complaint like that from the teacher, the best thing you would do for that child is to take the child in to see their family doctor. They're going to do some assessments for the child. And if they do the assessment and they feel like the child meets the criteria for diagnosis, then that's how the diagnosis is made. It's usually a difficult process for parents to accept that my child has this, because everybody feels like, especially people, especially Nigerians, we feel like, I don't want my child to be labeled, but like I said, ADHD is not something that comes with stigma. So it's not something that if your child has, or they are telling you that your child has, that you say, God forbid, is not my portion. It's, if it's there, it's there. And if the child needs help, the child needs help. That's it. And there is help available. I don't know where you want me to stop with that. I know we only have.
Well said, Dr. Jane. Yes, that was a good insight. I'm curious. I've also heard some people say that they were diagnosed later in life of ADHD. And this is me appealing to as many of us here. We're about 58. Feel free to be vulnerable. Is there anyone here who has been diagnosed or had to deal with ADHD? And what has that been like for you? And Chijioke, I'll be leaning to you based on your expertise as a psychologist. Well, practicing, training psychologist. What additions? I can see you. Who are you pointing at?
That's Olamide.
Oh, Olamide. Okay, yeah. So Olamide, I'm coming to you then. Sorry about that. You're an engineer, Chijioke. Yeah. So Olamide, I was coming to you. If there is anyone who is dealing with ADHD or has a child that has ADHD, are there any questions that you have for Olamide or Dr. Jane, or is there any tool that you have found that works for you in managing? I'm guessing managing is the right word, Dr. Jane. You don't necessarily cure ADHD, but how have you managed successfully or dealt with ADHD? Olamide, what are your thoughts as I'm looking for people on the call to share their experiences with ADHD, either personally or with dealing with a child or someone they know? Yeah, please go ahead, Olamide.
Okay. Dr. Jane have actually hit the nail on the head. But I want to start off with that misconception that not just Nigerians, unfortunately, but most people that are not from the Western world. Also, it's a diagnosis that I would also tell you is being overflogged, because you won't have kids walk up to you and tell you, do you know I have ADHD? And they're like, wow, really? You do have ADHD, so that's why you cannot sit still in class? Yeah, you should know that. Go check my IRP, like IPP, individual planning, something they have at school. So it's something, yeah. So it's something they do. They've overflogged really, and maybe teachers too are getting really. The support is not there because it's so easy. Any kid who is not just sitting still, and then go for assessment. well, psychologists, doctors, it's okay for them because it's just to assess. You make money, you do the assessment. But I try to tell parents, if I'm having that conversation with them, is to like, what are those things that you want to look out for? Because ADHD, the symptoms does present differently for boys than in girls. That's the truth. So for girls, for example, it comes off more as inattentive and makes ladies, I mean, girls risk, they are at more risk because it goes unnoticed until adulthood. And for boys, well, the other thing with them is they get overdiagnosed too because, oh, they can't just sit still. They're very playful and all those things. But the bottom line is what parents want to be looking out for is not just, oh, my kid can't sit still, or he can't just, he's too forgetful. And, but when you notice that the energy levels, what would be considered normal is something also that is not, there's no fine print as to exactly this is the normal energy level. Every kid is different. So you have to understand the uniqueness of your child and how you help them dissipate that energy. So, but for some people, some symptoms can be very crippling, and that is when you want to be concerned as a parent. So when they just, if it's beginning to affect their relationships, for example, even sibling relationships, and one kid is always jumping in and not allowing the other person. They are just very impatient. They are impulsive. And it's not just a one-off thing. It's something that, oh, every other time, you know, they can't seem to just get through a task. They forget a task. They have trouble focusing on, you know, any conversation. They lose track of whatever they're trying to do. So there's so many things in between too. For example, like a kid who is supposed to write, dyslexia comes in, they're supposed to write something, then they put in another letter. Those are different areas. But when these things are becoming more and more, that's when it becomes a problem. If left untreated, like you asked, because most people, I can guarantee you that more than half of us on this platform, if they go for an ADHD assessment, they'll be diagnosed as having ADHD. But like Dr. Jane said, you know, you back home, man, you just have to do it. That is something I see that is a blessing and a curse too, from a psychologist's perspective, because most people struggle at work. Yes, you might be an engineer, you might be a doctor, you might be a whatever you've done because your parent have forced you to do it and you have to do it. But then they get to not even just here in Canada or any Western world, even back home in Nigeria or any other African country, people struggle too. They are at work, but after doing the job for 1 year, they're tired. They want to get out of the job. They get bored very easily. They want to change careers. They want to, and then they see something on the internet, they just want to buy. Impulsive buying. You know, all of these things are those things that have been left untreated. ADHD can manifest in those things even in adulthood. So it affects relationships. It can cause financial stress. It causes, you know, a whole lot of problems down the road. So, but like Dr. Jane said, it is not the end of like, no, as with every or most problems, it can definitely be managed. It's just, you know, whatever plan that must be in place, if it is being caught very early, should, you know, include those strategies for helping your kid to manage their energy levels. And I know some parents do this well, get their kids involved in one sport or the other, you know, get them moving, get them doing something. Be very, very involved in their, you know, education. You know, what are those adjustments to school learning methods that you know that will help them? So, for example, as a parent, you just don't leave it to the school. Like, okay, do your homework. You have to be intentional about it. And unfortunately, labeling, well, whether or not they will still label, because if I don't see labeling, it can also be a blessing and a curse as well too. They have to label because parents don't want their kids labeled, but if your kid is not labeled, they won't get the support. because why would this kid need the support? So if you just come to school, I think my kid needs the support. Why? The only way to justify that why is to get labeled. They have to do the assessment. So if they find out that truly this kid needs, then you can be open to those support. So parents should be open enough to support their kid that in that way, and then also help kids with strategies for organization, because people who struggle with the ADHD are very disorganized. That's a very common symptom. Disorganized in everything, physically, emotionally, environmentally. They can't just keep up. And the adults too, they're working, but they just they can't tidy up. We see that. So strategies for helping to develop organizational skills is something else that helps. Also, strategies for helping to develop relationship skills, friendship skills. If you are a friend with me and all you do is, before I could finish a conversation, you jump in and you try to, I won't want to be, you know what, I don't want to have that kind of, and we know this kind of people too, even as adults, no, you know what, it's too lousy, I don't want to be. So if that is not quickly taken care of, it becomes a problem. So these are some of the strategies, there's a whole lot, it's not exhaustive, but just to limit our time here is these are some of the things we can notice, but the best thing is to catch it very early on. And that is why using this forum to tell parents is, do not be scared of the label that you think, oh, they would stigmatize my child. Rather see it as an opportunity to help your kid develop, to avoid even greater risk, that you are trying to protect them from, because you might have, you've helped them, they're now doctors, they're now, but we have so many doctors who are in serious financial mess because of, things that were not taken care of, but you were doing the right thing as a parent, but choosing not to help them is a disservice to them. So that's what I would say.
We cannot overemphasize the fact that it's not a stigma. ADHD is not a stigma. And I love the fact that the both of you have actually beat that drum. Aminat, I will pass it over to you. I'm not sure if someone wanted to say anything, but let's pause on that. Once Aminat is done, we're going to come to Emmy, and then afterwards we would move over to, because you were touching on something, Olamide, and that will be a beautiful segue into academics versus skills and tools and toolkits that we can give to our kids to succeed, right? And you were already touching on that, but I'm curious to hear what you had to say, Aminat, and then we'll go to Emmy.
Yeah, I just wanted to, in the spirit of vulnerability, I have been through the process of, being diagnosed of ADHD and trying to find solutions to, what comes with that. And like everybody, I know people don't want to be labeled. And the most, maybe the scary part for me is, holding on to that. Like, somebody mentioned the other time, didn't you notice that I'm someone with ADHD? Go check my file. Using that as an excuse or a way to evade things or whatnot. But the major issue that I am currently facing is, when you go to your family doctor, they just tell you you can just use medication. And to me, I feel like that doesn't really work. Maybe it works for some people. So let me not say it doesn't really work. So maybe it works for some people. But what I struggle with that, because I was like it was just immediately, okay, so there are some medications, just like, having a headache. This is a behavioral issue to me, right? And I know that it has some chemicals and hormones and everything to do with that as well. But I would have wanted more support and understanding about what the issue is and how to navigate that, either as a parent who has children or a child with ADHD. And that's where I would like to see more support and more advocacy in our community to understand what this is more important, so that you can better help. Another thing that has greatly helped is educating myself. A book, Scattered Minds from Gabor Mate is very, very helpful in understanding this. I have not read any other one that is as helpful to understand this phenomenon. It is a thing. It's hard, sometimes it's very hard to explain to someone else. You have to kind of document different circumstances where you feel like this is really what I'm dealing with here. So if you strongly feel that there is something wrong with one of your children or your children, please seek help. If you go to the medical family doctor and they ask you to take medications and you're not comfortable with it, you can always ask, what are the other options that are available to me that I can take advantage of? And there are. So don't be afraid to take the step, because what I usually think in my head is, if they go undiagnosed, what would happen? It's really a thing. What would happen when they are adults? If they are struggling so much now, and you know it, that there's something wrong, it just does not feel right. Please don't. I was so scared myself, but I was just like, the greater evil is just, helping that child is more important to me. How is she able to deal with day to day and manage other things that are coming our way, understanding what's wrong with her? That's another thing. If you have a child that is also a teenager that is puberty with the hormones, going through puberty and also dealing with this, is even a greater struggle. So please don't feel scared of being labeled. Just take what you need and stay. It's okay to stay within your comfort, but take what you need and try to move forward and see how you can help your child. I think that's one thing that I just wanted to add. And I really liked what Olamide touched on, those skills that we need to build. Everybody has different spectrum. You have to understand what is the child struggling with. And if you don't learn more about this topic, how are you going to identify those things there's some things that doesn't really jump out, but when you read and learn more, you understand, oh, this is why this happens. So you can better understand, is it that maybe they're confrontational? Because they're struggling to communicate. They're struggling really to communicate their emotions or what's not. So they're not going to be good friends. It's going to be a struggle to socialize in class, because people are just going to be like, oh, whatever it is that they're able to express their emotions with and all that. So some people are aggressive. Some people are so bad with their words. They can't even make a simple conversation, and some people just don't remember anything. So please learn more about it. Scattered Minds is really good. Please get the book. If you feel like, maybe even you as a parent, if you feel like there's something wrong with me, get that book, read it, and learn more about what you might be dealing with. You might not have ADHD, but even learning about it is something itself. So my 2 cents.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Aminat, for sharing. I love your vulnerability, and that you also took the proactive steps to address this. Amy, would come to you, but I'm curious your thoughts on Olamide and Dr. Jane. I'd love for you guys to take a minute to just share your thoughts on what Aminat had actually just spoken about. So Olamide will take you first, and then Dr. Jane, and then afterwards we'll come to you, Amy.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I made a very, very valid point, and thank you very much again for being vulnerable to not just being vulnerable, but being very helpful. I would say to let people see that this is not something to shy away from. So the thing is, I would say just the same way I do in practice, especially with people who struggle. I'm a psychologist, so I do not in any way try to push medication. So it's not my place to talk about medication. I'm not a psychiatrist or a family doctor. So, however, I think that's why I raised my hand. It would be a good opportunity to let people know that medication is not a bad thing. right? We have this, veil that we cover the medication with. It's evil, like it's terrible. It makes you a zombie. It does this, it does that. The problem is, psychologically speaking, what I see is people take medications and expect medications to solve their problems from a psychological standpoint. If it's headache, you can take Tylenol and boom, it's gonna go because the job is to mimic, we don't want to go all those medical jargons right now, but it will go. But when you're talking about something that is emotional, something that is cognitive, you don't take medications and you expect that, oh, now my problem is gone. The reason that you were in this financial mess, for example, is because of one's impulsiveness that came as a result of the ADHD that was there. And now I'm taking medication. Now the medication will teach me how to spend my money. That's not going to happen, right? What medication does is actually because the brain is firing at an alarming rate. It's sending messages that your brain is not able to do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. And like, oh, you've done this before, but medication would probably help, to give that individual a level playing ground. So for some individuals, you don't have to take medication. All you have to do is to follow some behavioral strategies. You know what? Follow a set routine, but some people are not just able to. That's the truth. Let's be honest. They try, like, you know what? I just can't do it. That is when we recommend, talk to a family doctor who can then refer you to a psychiatrist, for example, and then have a conversation with them. These are my fears, these are my worries. And no psychiatrist will prescribe medication, to you without telling you the side effects. This is how it's going to work and all that. So when you know these things, you can both decide on, okay, I'm going to go with this brand. I'm going to go with this dosage just to try out. And I would always add a caveat. When you start taking medication, that is the best time for you to take on those behavioral strategies. Because now you are at a level playing ground with your brain that allows you now to like, okay, I'm calm. This is the time I can sit down and focus.
And apply
those strategies.
Well said.
Exactly.
Well said.
So,
well said.
But if you take that medication, you don't have tools. When it wears off, you're back to where you started. So medication is not a bad thing. So it's an opportunity to just, sensitize people like, okay, this is what medication does. This is what you can do, to help yourself. So it's a balanced approach. And that is what I just wanted to quickly add to what Amina said.
Medications are not terrible. Awesome. Well said. Dr. Jane, please, 1 minute. We're approaching our 10-minute mark. Yeah.
Just to add to what Olamide said, and I agree with you with him 100%. ADHD, and I beg to disagree with what Aminat said. ADHD is more biomedical than behavioral. A lot of kids who have ADHD do not even have any behavioral issues. The most concerning features is the fact that they are not able to learn. They are not able to learn because of their inattentiveness and their hyperactivity. So that doesn't mean that there is absolutely no behavioral part. No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is it's more biomedical. Like Olamide said, there are potentials firing in the brain, and just the human being is not able to deal with it. It's just what's going on. And recall that I said it's a spectrum. There are so many people that have ADHD that will be able to cope with their lives without medication. That's another important information that I want everybody to take here. Many people will have ADHD, but they are able to cope with, with skills to cope with their lives without needing medication. However, if it begins to affect your daily functioning and the child's ability, because at this stage they need to learn. An adult who doesn't need to learn and is just having problems with coping with everyday life, they can do whatever, like they can meander through these things. But the child needs to learn, and if they are not able to learn, it's a problem because it's going to affect their future. So in that case, that's when we begin to suggest, okay, in addition, most physicians will want you to start with the non-pharmacological, with the non-medication, with the non-medication options. Most physicians will put that out first. But unfortunately, or well, fortunately, let me not say unfortunately, in our environment, physicians are thought to practice patient-centered care, patient-led care. If a patient comes to the office and they say, my child has been diagnosed with ADHD and I want medication for my child, that's what they're going to get. I would still talk to you about the other options and tell you everything, but pretty much these parents are coming in and they're saying, I want ADHD medication for my child. Probably they've tried the non-medication option and they feel like it's not working, or they feel like, you know what, cut the chase, let's hit the nail on its head. But whatever, most physicians will give you the options available, including the psychologist talk therapy, including behavioral therapy, including everything. They're going to give you those options. Now, the other thing is somebody posted on the chat that the medications do more harm than good. I respectfully disagree with that. Every medication has its side effects, and it's not a one size fits all. It's different strokes for different folks. When you come in and it's time to have medication, we're going to go through the different options, start something, and then if it's not working, there are other options to try. And we try to integrate all the different aspects of management in patients. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jane. I know we are now at the 5-minute mark. Emmy, I don't know if it's a comment or a question, but I'll give this to you with the hopes that I can allow all of our guests to have a closing remark. But Emmy, over to you, please.
Hello, everyone. This is Amy's wife, Onyinye, speaking, and I'm just going to speak for less than a minute because this topic is actually very dear to my heart. I'm a mom of a special needs boy, so when I heard all the labels and things like that, I just told my husband, let me just chime in. But really, the last three, Aminat, Olamide, and Dr. Jane has already said everything I wanted to say. So I'm just going to summarize. I don't want us to be scared of labels. I think at the end of the day is the battle in our minds between our culture and our religious views. So please manage that battle in your mind. It's a big, big battle in the mind for sure. I don't want my child labeled. Nothing is wrong with my child. God forbid. It can never be me. I bind it in the name of Jesus. I did all of those. At the end of the day, you're going to know the difference. You're a mom, especially anyway, even if it's your first child, you're just going to know after some time that, okay, something is just off with this child. Please fight that battle in your mind. Remember, it's just a battle between our culture and our religion. For me, a label, if you have a headache, that's a label. If your tummy is upsetting you, that's a label. Because I'm a Christian and a Christian to my heart, I've accepted the fact that it's for a certain time. I don't want to go religious, but I remember a story in the Bible where somebody was blind and they said at the end, it's neither the parents nor the mom. It's so that God will be glorified. So that's the way I see my son today, as I accept where he is today and try and research, get all the education, just like Aminat said, doing a lot of research, doing every single thing humanly possible to make sure that that scripture comes to pass in his life. So the label is not the bad thing. It's just the battle in your mind. Thank you so much.
Well said.
Wow.
Well said.
Amazing.
Thank you very much. That was powerful. Powerful. So let's bring it home now. We've talked about several tools, discipline, helping our kids to have that self-confidence and emotional intelligence. Final words from every one of you, and I want you to tailor this in terms of academics. The school will do. We'll do our best. But what are the tools as well? What are the skills that we can actually give to our kids to make sure that they are well-rounded? If they face any challenges in life, they can be effectively balanced to face it, to be well-nurtured and good citizens of Canada and represent the values and the virtues that we've taught them. I would start with you, Dr. Jane, then go to you, Chijioke, Amina, Olamide. And as much as I've been very cautious with time, I want to hold you guys to account, keep it at the max to 1 minute as we wrap up. Dr. Jane and then Chijioke.
So just very quickly, because I know the other speakers are going to talk about the morals and the upbringing and stuff. Just again with the ADHD, The one thing I want to leave with all parents is if you feel your child is inattentive or has a bit of ADHD in them and you're still not keen on medication, start by, helping the child develop a personal organizer. It could be a reminder set on the phone. It could be an actual hard copy organizer or reminder to give them schedules for the day. Reminders on the phone to remind them about appointments and remind them about homeworks and things like that. Using a countdown timer. It could be their watch. It could also be the one that, the hourglass one that you turn up and down. It could be that, yeah. It could also be sequencing. So just anything you can do to help them get more organized. We can start by doing that for them. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Dr. Jane. Okay.
Yeah. Hello? Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, okay. Please go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I want to focus back on the parents who've spoken lots about the kids. Most of us parents need help ourselves. Let's just be plain. I've been here a long time. I've talked to lots of parents, whether it's marriage or relationships. In fact, some of us have more problems than the kids. And as I said at the beginning, if the parents are okay, the kids will be okay. So and the information we ingest, whether it's from the news media, everything around us, will affect us one way or the other. So you work on yourself. You're going to find it easier to work on the kids if you perform excellently. And then be open to asking questions. Ask lots of questions. Read lots of books. There are great books to read, lots of information. If you are fine, you're not going to worry about your kids. I guarantee you know what to do. If you encounter problems, you know how to solve it. You know who to talk to. Email people, call them, ask questions. You'll be fine. They'll be fine.
Stay informed, work on yourself. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Chijioke. I mean, add any closing thoughts? And then what are the tools or skills you probably want to leave us with?
Okay, just on what Jane had just said regarding tools, I think one of the revolutionary thing that my children gained a lot from is journaling. We journal every Friday. It's part of our homeschool thing. Tell me how your day went, what made you confident, things like that. I have a prompt for them that they have on the first page. They always go back to that every Friday and they write regarding that. But what I really wanted to say is that, the ultimate is that we want our kids to be happy, right? And the truth is that at the end of the day, what makes happiness? I always go to my scripture. Happiness is always said along the lines of contentment, right? We want to be contented because some people are going to have more than you. But for you to be really contented or to feel like you have accomplished, you want to have a purpose. And that also comes to my point on identity. You want your kids to assert their identity. You want whoever it is, you want them to make sure that they are not leaving their identity for others to control. Because identity can also be linked with narrative, So ask them to define who they are. Like it's a whole assignment that you can do over years. Who are you and who do you want to become? I always tell my kids that it has to do with kindness. You're human and everything around you, you have to relate with them like you heard their vicegerent on Earth. So take care of everything that comes with that. You are a person, you want them to control the narrative and what other people think about them. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautifully said. Identity, contentment. Thank you very much. That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing. Olamide, you have the final words before I pass it back to our village headmistress.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't think there's anything to touch on again regarding ADHD because I believe I already talked about that. So first thing, is what we've all been saying. To be honest, as parents and in this part of the world, you just have to keep learning. Learn, and be open to learning. That flexible thinking. Just like Chijioke said, honestly, you can learn if you're a rigid person, because learning does not only come in reading books, right? Your interactions with people, be open-minded, be willing to take other people's opinion and not just, nope, that's not for me, this is wrong, this is bad, done. You must be open to learning because it gives you an opportunity to, change yourself and for the better. So that's number one. Secondly is, please let us practice empathy. Practicing empathy for self and for others helps to, I'm going to be speaking from that mental health perspective because that's my field, is what will definitely help you in this time, managing the stress, managing all of that, and recognizing it early. When you're able to practice empathy, put yourself in people's shoes, and in this case, your kids as parents, just don't assume, in my time, 30 years, 20 years ago, this was how we did it, and that's it. We want to, things are different. Show empathy. That's another thing. Now, show understanding and listen. As a parent, I see that's one thing that we may be doing, but maybe not enough, and we can never overdo it. Show understanding and listen. Sometimes even these kids do not ask you for a response. Talking to them, I've seen that a lot. They just want you to listen. Before a kid ends the conversation, it's okay, go and sit down there. If not, the real message they are trying to pass to you is at the end of that statement, but you've cut them off. I'm like, okay, no problem. So we being patient with them to, listen and practically to listen with empathy, pay full attention to that, and also be a good role model. Just to if the parent is okay, you can't give what you don't have. Looking at family systems, if I'm working with people coming from that family systems lens, we have to look at how we can improve the communication system in the family, because that is where the problem is. Communication, not just verbal, right? Non-verbal, and those cues kids pick on very easily. So it goes a long way in helping the kid to develop good mental health, and for the family as well. So be a good role model yourself. Monitor the use of technology and social media. That is the bane of our society right now. We cannot overemphasize that, so I won't dwell on that. And another area, I think parents, just 2 more points, is never compare. Oh man, African parents, we compare a lot. Look at that boy. Can you see him? Maybe he's in the church or anywhere in the mosque. Can you see that boy? Can you see that girl? Why, that already is embarrassing for the child. I'm not saying we cannot tell our kids. We can always motivate them. We can always support them, charge them to. But not even comparing externally, even among siblings. Look at your brother. Look at your sister. That alone goes a long way in helping to deflate a kid's esteem without having to say so many things. So we want to be careful, especially when we're doing it in the presence of a significant other, maybe their sibling, or so. If you want to, you can have conversations, and that's where that place of that personal conversation, parent-child, what can you do to improve this thing? Having that personal conversation, it's a way of showing the kid that, you know what, you are different, you are unique, and it helps them overall, to express, to trust you as a parent and to confide in you. And lastly, if you know that, man, I've tried all these things and it's not working, ask for help.
Seek help.
The first and often hardest way to any kind of mental health, or even physical health, whatever it is, you have to ask. If you don't, nobody knows what you're going through. So ask for help. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Olamide. Thank you, Aminat. Thank you so much, Chijioke. Thank you, absolutely, Dr. Jane. You guys have shared your wealth of experience. I was actually looking forward to this, and there are tips, tricks, and tools that I know I will be applying when I engage with my sons. Thank you very much for your insights. Thank you very much for sharing your experiences. I know this has been amazing for me as a facilitator, and not just a facilitator, but a consumer of these insights and nuggets that you have shared. Thank you very much. It's been amazing. Onomen, I will pass this over to you for any closing thoughts. And then for the benefit of all of us on the call, Onomen had shared the survey. Please respond, provide your feedback to the meeting and ways to which we can actually improve and enhance these conversations. But over to you, Onomen. Thank you very much. You're muted, Onomen.
I'm sorry. I just want to say a big thank you to our co-host Ikemefuna, and also to every panelist and our guest today, Olamide, Chijoke, Uncle CJ, that's what I call him, and also Dr. Jane. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. This is the last village meeting for this year. We have done 7 village meetings this year, and we are going back to re-strategize for 2025. I just want to say thank you again. We have gone through the series of Dear Immigrants Wives, Dear Immigrant Husbands, and Dear Immigrant Moms, and that we are going back again to strategize for the new year. But for every of the episodes that we've had this year, I want to say a very big thank you to every panelist and also to everyone who have constantly attended the village meeting, and also to the people who are not here today. But thank you. And also to people, our collaborators, those also integrated, and our collaborators and friends who have always come in to make sure that this is a success. Thank you so very much. We have a survey on the chat. If you want to please tell us what you want us to do in 2025. There's something that we are planning already anyway, but we want you to also give us your thoughts and your opinions so that we can make sure that this is, like Dr. Jane said, every doctor here, is patient-centered. And I'm sure for the psychologist too, it's the same thing. And also for the village meeting, that's what we want. We want to do what you want us to do. We want to discuss what the issues that you're having at home, the challenges that you're having, and also, whether it's in your marriage and also for your kids, everywhere, economy, jobs, whatever. We want to be able to do that for you. So if you help us fill the survey, we'll be able to customize every conversation and discussion, on the village meeting so that it can be beneficial to you and your family. For me, it's a happy new year for 2025. It's just some days to end the year, and we will see you again next year. Thank you so much for coming in. Yes, thank you, everybody. Thank you again, our panelists. Bye. Have a fantastic evening.
Bye-bye.
Have a fantastic evening. Thank you, everybody. Bye. Thank you. Let me start calling names.
Bye.
Oh, yes. I see Kemi. I see Olamide again. I see Maze Bukun. I see Per. Palumi. Yes. Grace. Thank you. Wando. Yes. I see you. IJ. I see you. Erica. I see you. John V. I see you. SO. iPhone D. Jen. iPhone Paul. Palumi. I called you before. Per. Maze. I called you before. Omoshalakbe. I see you. Jimmy. Precious. Yemi, Benny, Habinazer, yes, Miriam, Chioma, Abi, Regina, Gina, yeah, and Kabe. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming, and have a fantastic weekend and year end. Bye.